A winter sleeping pad with an R value over 5 that weighs just over 1 pound for less than $100. The Apollo Air by Gear Doctors. Let's get into it. What's up, Dirt Junkies? Winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
Which means that our dirt will be covered with snow and the temperatures are dropping. I'm determined to still get out in the dirt and snow this winter, which means I've got to up my gear game to deal with the cold temperatures. With that in mind, I've reached out to a few sleeping pad companies to see if I could test some of their sleeping pads for winter. What I'm looking for in a winter sleeping pad is one that has an R value at least close to 5 to insulate me from the cold ground. I really prefer a sleeping pad that's at least 3 inches thick for comfort. It needs to weigh less than 2 pounds, and I really want to spend less than $100. I'm a budget backpacker, what can I say? I found a few different options, including this Apollo Air from Gear Doctors, and they were kind enough to send me this one to test out. Don't worry, my opinions are all my own. I don't feel like I have to give this sleeping pad a glowing review just because Gear Doctors sent it to me. There are a few other sleeping pads I'm hoping to test out, but this is the first one I've received, so let me tell you about it. This is the pad that I took on a recent backpacking trip with my friend Justin. It got pretty cold at night, including some nice snow one morning when we woke up. So I've definitely tested this pad in the backcountry and in the cold. First and foremost, because I'm looking for a winter sleeping pad, let's talk about the R value. This pad has an R value of 5.2, so it meets my criteria of being over or at least close to 5. R value is really important with a winter sleeping pad because that is what insulates you from the cold ground. If you have a pad with an R value much less than that, you're really going to feel the cold ground sucking the heat right out of you. It will not matter how warm your sleeping bag is if you have a sleeping pad that's not built for the cold. As I said, I really tested this out on my backpacking trip. I took it down into the mid, maybe even low 20s, and I feel like I could take it even colder than that. There wasn't any point during the night that I felt like my sleeping pad was cold underneath me. So warmth was never an issue with this sleeping pad. Next, we'll talk about the weight. The advertised weight of this sleeping pad is 17 ounces. With the included bag, it's 17.5 ounces, and when you add in the included pump sack, it comes to about 20 ounces total. Still a really good weight for a winter sleeping pad with an R value over 5, and the pump sack included if that's what you like to use. So I'm really happy with the weight of the Apollo Air. Now, it doesn't matter what the R value or the weight of a sleeping pad is if you cannot sleep on it. As I said, I really want a sleeping pad with a thickness of at least 3 inches. This one comes in at 3.2, so it's just over that 3-inch mark. I did feel like it was very comfortable. In fact, when I first received it, my son slept on it for 4 nights in a row at home, and he was pretty upset with me that I took it on my backpacking trip. So, comfort does not seem to be an issue. I am typically a side sleeper, sometimes on my stomach, not usually on my back. And what I found with a lot of sleeping pads is that when you sleep on your side, your hip or your shoulder is digging right through the pad and touching the ground. I never felt like the Apollo Air let any of my body touch the ground while I was sleeping on it. I could sleep on my side, turn over, anything. I never felt my knee or my hip or my shoulder touch the ground while I was sleeping on the Apollo Air. So that 3.2-inch thickness really made a difference for me as a side sleeper. And it is 23 inches wide at its widest point, only 19 inches wide at its narrowest point. As with a lot of sleeping pads, they keep the foot end a bit narrower to save on weight. When I first laid on it at home, I felt like it wasn't wide enough. My arms were falling off of the pad. I have a fairly wide body anyway. Is that a fat joke? But when I was sleeping in my sleeping bag, I never felt like the pad wasn't wide enough. Between the bag and the pad, my arms and everything else was off the ground the entire night. And honestly, I'm usually a side sleeper anyway, so my arms falling off the pad wasn't an issue. So for me, the width wasn't really an issue, but if you prefer a slightly wider pad, it's good to know that this one is 23 inches wide at its widest point. As far as the length is concerned, this pad is 72 inches long, which I'm 6 feet tall, so that means this pad is the exact same height as me. I would have really preferred it be a little bit longer. I felt like I had to have my pillow, my sleeping pad lined up just perfectly to make sure that my feet and my head and my pillows all stayed on the pad without a problem. So a little bit longer would have been nice. nice, but 72 inches was okay. So the overall comfort was good. I wouldn't say for me it was perfect. Again, I would prefer just a little bit wider, a little bit taller, but I'm 6 feet tall, a little bit of a wider body. Is that a fat joke? So those things may just come down to personal preference. But I also have to say that I slept well in the backcountry on this sleeping pad. A few tweaks here and there to make it perfect for me, sure, but everybody's different and prefers slightly different things in their sleeping pad. This one was comfortable. And my other main criteria that I was looking for is that I want the price to be less than $100. I will say that I have scoured the internet, and this is the only sleeping pad that I found with an R value over 5 that's less than $100. Well, that's not true. There was one other one on Amazon for $30, but honestly, I'm a little too scared to even try that. I feel like $30 isn't quite enough for a winter sleeping pad, and I'm just afraid that it wouldn't work out. Maybe I'll try it, but probably not. So if you're looking for an R value over 5 and less than $100, this is the only one I've found. If you guys have found anything else that meets that criteria, I would love to know about it, because I have looked and looked, and this is the only one I can find with an R value over 5 for less than $100. So I really like the price point of this pad, especially with the features. Now let me tell you about a few other things that are important to know about this pad. As I said, it does come with a pump sack. Pump sacks are really nice. I'd never had one until this pad, but it makes blowing up the pad at camp so much easier, and it actually saves your pad from potential damage from moisture getting into your pad. I'll admit I didn't take the pump sack on this trip, but I will be taking it in the future because my friend scolded me for not bringing it along and said I was ruining my new pad. He's probably right. I'll take the pump sack in the future for only an additional 3.5 ounces. So the included pump sack is really nice. We also need to talk about just how small this sleeping pad packs up to. Obviously, this is a sleeping pad in its bag. It's about the size of a water bottle. Packs up nice and small, but still gives you that warmth from a nice insulated pad, and is pretty comfortable as well. So this pad is not going to be too big in your backpack. Really nice how small it is, especially given the warmth and all the other features I've talked about. It's also important to note that the pad is made of 40D nylon. There's quite a few pads out there that are just made of 20D, which is much thinner and not as durable. This one's made of 40D, making it a little more durable. Some additional weight there, but worth it for the durability in my mind. So let's summarize what I like and don't like about the Apollo Air from Gear Doctors. First of all, for a winter sleeping pad, the R value is on point at 5.2. That's what I would want, that's what I'd expect, and I could really feel that insulation when I was sleeping on it during that cold night. Second, the weight. Really light at just over a pound, or 20 ounces if you're taking the included pump sack. But 17 ounces for a sleeping pad is really good. It doesn't get much lighter than that, especially with an R value of 5.2. Third, it was fairly comfortable. While it's not the most comfortable sleeping pad I've slept on, I love my 4-inch thick Trekology. For the price point and the other features, this one was comfortable to sleep on. I also like how small it packs up and that it's made of 40D nylon. I have a few pads that are made of a thinner material. 40D is definitely my preference for the added durability. As far as some things I didn't quite love about this sleeping pad, first of all, I would like it was just a little bit longer. I would love if they sold a long version or an XL version that was even just 5 to 6 inches longer and maybe a little bit wider. That comes down to personal preference, but for me, being 6 feet tall and a little bit of a wider build, is that a fat joke? I really would have liked a little bit longer, wider pad. The other thing I noticed, and it could have been because of the combination of my sleeping bag and the pad, I just felt like it was kind of slippery. Our campsite also wasn't perfectly level while we were there, but I felt like I had to shift myself back up onto my pad, which is probably also in part because of the fact that it's only 72 inches long. So I had to be perfectly aligned on this pad for all 6 feet of me to fit on the pad and have nothing falling off. I am planning to try it with some other sleeping bags and maybe some quilts, but with the sleeping bag I was using, the Teton Leaf, I just felt like I was sliding off. Not all of the time, but I did have to shift myself back up a few times during the night. Those are my thoughts on the Apollo Air from Gear Doctors. So, would I recommend this sleeping pad? At the price point, absolutely yes. Can you get sleeping pads that are thicker, have a higher R value, or have some other features? Sure, but there is no way that you can get a sleeping pad that has all of these features with this R value and this comfort for less than $100. At least I haven't found one yet. If you know of one, please enlighten me in the comments. I would love to test that one out as well. But for under $100, this is a fantastic winter sleeping pad. I've included a link below in the description where you can pick this up directly from Gear Doctors or from Amazon. If you have any other questions about the sleeping pad, let me know what they are in the comments. I answer all of my comments and would love to tell you anything else you want to know about this sleeping pad. If you need a winter sleeping pad on a budget, this is a great way to go. Remember, life is better with some dirt in it. Winter... Darn it. And